Now let's move ahead. Let's look at the modeling aspect of it. So let's look at the view aspect of it. Do you want to have some rows and column, dotted rows and columns for you for clear placement of the visualization? You can make use of the grid lines to view it, and if you want it, you can keep it. If you don't want it, you can just uncheck it. Snap objects to grid. This is one option which you can snap these objects into to a grid. So right now, these objects right now form a grid. Lock objects. Now these objects can't be moved. You can also select whatever you wanted to, but you can't move those objects. So I have always ensured once you are done with your visualization locations on your screen, you can lock the object. Do you want the bookmark pane to be available over here? If yes, you can move it, keep it, or else you can cancel it. It gets removed from the bookmark pane. Selection pane is more like how do you want to select it? Do you want slicer to be present or no? Or you can move it from top to bottom. So do you want it to be down in the view order? You can keep it, right? You can also define the tab order. So this is not the tab order, so I'll just move it down. What I want is a product name. It is at the top. So slicer should always, this revenue by region should go down, right? And as we do the tab, it will move. So if I move it from here, see, I'm clicking on tab. On the this tab feature would be enabled on the Power BI services only. And once you deploy it, you would make use of these tab orders based on what you have done. Sync the slicer is a feature wherein if you want to sync it across different pages, you can do it, right? So this is an advanced feature which we'll have a look at it later. But in short, if I have to tell you what does the sync slicer do, it basically syncs the content of this page with the other pages available on the screen. So if you've selected this particular product, that data would only be available on this screen or else no. Performance analyzer is more like a development tool to analyze the performance of the uh, different objects getting loaded onto your Power BI desktop development. So if you see start recording and if you say refresh visuals, it would give you the percentage by which the time frame it took to deploy or show that content onto the screen. You can further check what all elements, like was it a query which took more time, or visualization did it take time, or something else which took time to load the content. So in this way you can work on the speed of loading of the content. One more important thing on the view icon over here is, let's close this for a while, and now let's look at the phone layout. This is something very important. Based on what we've seen, you would like to have a visualization covered over here. So let's have few visualization over here. Let's have certain regions as a visualization over here. You can increase the width if you may. Then you can have names over here. You can have the report given over here and a report given over here, right? These reports are basically, since it is a lock object, we are not able to work around with it. Now I am able to work with it. So see, this is the advantage and disadvantage of these options. Sometimes it is advantageous, sometimes it is not advantageous. It is up to you. This is more like the phone performance. You are trying to view how would it look like on my phone. So for a for learning sake, we can design to keep it this way. There are much better ways to have, or like lighter, cleaner, faster ways of having these mobile reports as a friendly thing. Action buttons, you can decide which action button you want it on your screen. Probably on this screen you might want back and probably a Q&A, nothing else. So I've kept these two if you change it to the mobile view. Now let's go into again the charts screen by clicking on this option, and I go into, okay, I change it to desktop layout. I go into Superstore tab. Let's move into modeling. These The one modeling feature over here is how do we manage relationship. Like we said, relationship pane will, on clicking on this again, it shows you the relation, like the same thing what we saw on the view and manage relationship. So ultimately there are overlapping features of relationship. You can access it over this button, you can access it by this model button. New measure, if you have certain formulas which you want to put into Power BI desktop for evaluation, then you have to write a measure. There is something a little advanced which we'll learn it in the due course. A new column, if you want to calculate or make a new column, like we made a new table, a region table, if you want to add a new column, you are free to do so by adding a new column. So a new column came in. You can delete a column and you can add a column, right? Then let's go ahead to that table. What if? This is one most asked feature which Excel used to give it to us, right? And you can decide what if a value is this, what would be the increment. So you can decide the what if conditions over here to be viewed on the output graph. For now, let's not touch it. uh, Data type, if you are working on the table, right, and if you have this table, and if you want to change the data type, you can change the data type and format type over here. And now let's proceed with this. uh, let's go into the format. You can also categorize the data, what kind of data it is. It is a place, city, pro. If you have some kind of categories, these categories help you query the data better. Please understand such things of mapping. Basically, you are defining a metadata about your data. And once you have that kind of metadata, it helps Power BI help you with the relevant Q&As in your Q&A question answer sheet. There is a feature, like I said, a roles based access, in which we can create roles on a table and the filters, and then only that data would be visible. This is an advanced section which we'll have a look at it at a later stage. Once you have a role, you can view this Power BI desktop by a particular role. This helps you to test every role what you have given for the data visualization, and then only deploy the content on the screen. So again, this is something what would come in at a later stage in our learning. What is new group? So if you see, if you want to group certain contents, it is, in this case, it is about this region table. But if you are working with orders, right? And if you have something known as, uh, you can group certain countries into groups. So if you say this is a part of important areas, you can group them, right, into something, and those areas would come up as a new group. So these are city groups, and which is a new column which has been generated and added to the list, right? And if you look at it, you can see, if you search important, if you search it based on city groups, it would give you city groups and it would give you what group it is part of. So this is a grouping mechanism which you would shortly see. Languages, if you want this schema uh, of a different uh, language, so like it says, import or export the schema that Q&A uses to answer questions. So currently your Q&A answers all the contents in English. But if you want something to be answered in your native language, a regional language or your national language, you will have to import the schema first and then start using it. Yeah, this is a least used feature, but it is very important one to be used in Latin America, um, parts of Europe, Asia, Middle East, and so on and so forth. Those regions, if they are using Power BI, it will help them understand the data in the way they can easily understand. So this was all about modeling. Uh, Rest assured, we are going to touch groups and roles and new parameter what if very soon in our learning. This is a help documentation tab wherein you can submit your idea. You can do a Power BI for developers. You can connect to the community. You can ask for a support or raise an issue. You can read the documentation about Power BI and you can do your self learning on your own. So with this, we conclude the file menu options of Power BI desktop. Along with this, we've also studied one more thing, which is this. We did cleansing of and importing the data into Power BI. In this case, we worked with an Excel data, and in this, we first identified the data for which we want to build a report, from which we want to build a chart, right? Next, we cleanse the data. We ensure the repetition of the data in the column is there, right? There are calculated columns. If there are, can be ignored. If you don't have, you can make it in the Power BI desktop after importing as well. Formats are not so important, like I told you that formats can be changed over here. You can add new column and you can derive a new formula. So formula is a measure and column is a new column, and type is not important. So these three things we followed. We ensured the data within the column is of same type. That was one thing. Therefore, repetition of data is preferred, and the data we use is an Excel data. This is an Excel data sheet what we had imported. We did identify the data source, that is Excel. We connected to the data source, that in this case the data source threw up so many tables: orders table, people table, and returns table. And optionally, we link the data. So we have linked the data using the back and the forward icon buttons, which help you connect to it. With this, we complete the second section of our story, which is file menu options and cleansing and import of data.